Hey everyone, welcome back to the American Justice Podcast. Another Q&A episode. I know we missed out, or you missed out. Actually, we know what it sounds like, but you guys missed out on Sunday's episode. The world's in a little bit of an uproar right now, and that includes our editor and producer. That all comes from the East Coast. And as you all know, either you're on the East Coast or you're here with us back around Dallas. You know the East Coast is going through some problems right now. I mean, not saying that we're not going through some problems here.
Is it just the East Coast?
No, it's not just the East Coast.
Okay.
We're going through some problems here. Self-quarantine and restaurants and bars shut down, and basically unlike anything I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Mine too. And people can't see it at home, but there is actually a glass wall right between us. So we're quarantined.
Trust us, it's here. Did you like my mime impression?
I did. I was very impressed.
Yes.
Did you go to school for that?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
I picked that up from hours of watching guys in Central Park do that.
Ah.
So
okay.
I'm horrible at it.
So anyways, yes, we are quarantined.
We are quarantined to a point. Now it's not San Francisco quarantine yet.
Where you can't leave the house.
You can't leave the house, but there's a possibility it's going to get that way. So we better do what we can while we can.
But there's less than 50 people here, so I think we're good.
Right. There is true. No, actually...
or is it 10 people?
I think Dallas dropped it down to 10 people.
10 people.
10 people.
Well, I guess we won't show everybody the 8 people in the audience then.
No. Wave at the audience.
Hi, guys.
How are you doing? But it is a little creepy out there. Little scary, little concerning. But
you know what it reminds me of, like with traffic and stuff, is like holidays. Like Christmas time.
Yeah,
like there's nobody on the
does.
road.
And maybe that's why people around here. I'm not sure if this is a nationwide thing, but I know there are people putting up Christmas lights just to kind of bring some cheer to the neighborhood. I am not making this up.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Actually.
There are people putting up Christmas lights, I guess, to bring a little cheer.
Little joy.
Little joy.
I brought a little joy once.
Yeah. Don't tell us about it. So
are you sure?
Even though we didn't have...
I mean, this is the we haven't told everybody yet, but this is the no holds barred Q&A
the
episode.
no holds barred Q&A. We'll get through the questions, and I do have a gripe. I do have a complaint.
Uh-oh.
It does deal with this wonderful country of ours, the United States of America. It does not have anything to do with politics. So if someone was just waiting on that moment where I was going to go off on the president or something, I'm not going to do that.
I was going to say I'm disappointed. I thought we were going to talk politics.
I have a complaint about the United States in general. But let's get through the questions first. We did have a couple of questions that we chose that came in over the week from the last episode. Now the next episode will come out Sunday. Am I correct?
Sunday at 6 a.m. That's one thing I've noticed that a couple of people have asked me about that I didn't really make clear. The Sunday episodes, the recorded episodes, are released at 6 a.m. And then the Q&A episodes, the one we're doing right now, are actually released at midnight on Friday morning. So 6 a.m. Sunday, midnight Friday.
So you start your weekend with our faces and end the weekend on your voice. It's just all about Scott.
Well,
it's another Scotty weekend.
It's all about freeing somebody from prison.
It is all about that. This is a question that I have before we get started. With all of this going on in the world right now, and I know the different government agencies taking all their precautions.
Yes.
Have you heard from Brandon since this began?
I have.
And did he mention any changes, precautions, or anything that they're taking?
Well, the only thing they're doing right now is Governor Abbott, our wonderful governor here in the state of Texas, has limited visitations. So you cannot visit prisoners right now.
That makes sense. I got a call from my son on Friday. It was my son, Anakin.
Anakin.
Yes.
Anakin Skywalker.
I'm that dad. Anakin called me. He is in Army boot camp in Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
South Kakalaki.
South Kakalaki. He called me this previous Friday, and he's like...
Which would be a week ago today.
A week ago. And he had just gotten out of the field. He's 2 weeks away from basic training graduation. He told me that I couldn't come to South Carolina to watch him graduate, that the family day had been canceled. And then he called me 3 days later and said that all graduation had been canceled. They're not allowing any soldiers to go between bases. So he is now stuck in Army basic training for 2 additional months.
Oh, no. Are they going to make him keep up like the basic training stuff?
I don't think they're going to make him train, because I went to watch something on Netflix last night. My wife has never had the pleasure of watching The Walking Dead. So I figured that, this is as good a time as any to bring that into her mind, little post-apocalyptic television show.
This is a good time to binge watch anything you've been like wanting to binge watch, right?
So we watched the first episode of The Walking Dead, and she suddenly asked me to go buy a gun.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that here in a bit.
So I'm just full disclosure. I've never seen The Walking Dead either. That's about the zombies, right?
It's about the zombies.
Now, do guns? I heard that guns don't really. Do they really stop zombies?
If you shoot them in the head.
Oh, okay.
If you shoot
I
them
thought
in the
maybe
head,
if they're dead already, that you can't really stop them with a gun. But
I guess the
maybe
point,
that's a vampire.
The point I was making with that comment is I couldn't watch it because there were too many people on my Netflix account, and one of them. When I looked at everybody that was on it, one of them was Anakin Miller. So he is. I guess
he's got some free time.
They've given him some free time. They've given him their phones, and he was watching Netflix. The first TV that he's been able to watch now in almost 2 months. So rather than kick him off, I just opted to get the more expensive plan and add 2 more screens to it.
So did you? I mean, this is just. I know it was a long time ago, but. Did you get to watch TV in boot camp?
I did not. I think
these kids are being spoiled.
I went to boot camp in 1997, Fort Jackson. As a matter of fact, the unit that I was in, which was 213, Anakin is in 260th. He said it's about 100 feet away from where he is. So he's about 100 feet away from where I went to boot camp.
Oh, cool.
We had one holiday, and I don't remember which one it was. And they went and rented 2 movies for us. VHS tapes. This is pre-DVD. VHS. They went and rented a copy of Liar Liar with Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, yeah.
And it was new on video at the time. No one had seen it unless they saw it in a theater. And they also rented Hamburger Hill, which... It's a war movie.
It's a war movie, right?
Yeah, it's a war movie. So, they had to keep us in the mood. But we also got to watch Liar Liar. And,
it's not like a how-to or anything.
No.
Oh, okay. I've never seen it, so I don't.
I'll take you back a step further. When I did get out of basic training and I finally had a weekend to myself, I transferred to Fort Gordon, Georgia, which is an hour away in Augusta, Georgia.
Georgia.
Beautiful city and awesome. It's a golf town. It's not a military town. It is a golf town. It is very nice. I went to the movies on the very first weekend when I got there, and I saw Half Baked.
Okay.
With Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle, yeah.
And then I saw Mortal Kombat 2. And at the time...
What was there a Mortal Kombat 1?
There was a Mortal Kombat. And it's actually not... For a video game movie, it wasn't too bad. Mortal Kombat 2 is such a suck fest. It is so horrible. But at the time, I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I hadn't watched television in almost 3 months. I hadn't seen a movie in almost 3 months. So it was great. But anyway, enough of that.
It's interesting because I've never seen like a bunch of movies, but I somehow seem to know about them.
Right.
Like I know Best Little Whorehouse in Texas has Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds.
And
but
Jim
I've
Nabors.
never seen it. So Jim Nabors too.
Jim Nabors is in it too.
Cool. Wow. Golly.
Yeah, it's a classic. I'm surprised by a lot of the younger people I work with have never seen that movie. Have never even heard that movie mentioned. Like,
oh yeah.
So I've told them all, oh gosh, go watch it.
Go watch it.
If you like musicals and just corny stuff, go check that out.
Yeah.
Speaking of horror, horror. My publisher over the weekend, the first weekend of the quarantine, they gave away their entire Amazon Kindle, Amazon Kindle library for absolutely free.
I saw that.
For all the people who were stuck in quarantine with nothing to do, trying to encourage people to stay home. And we gave away close to 10,000 books.
That's awesome.
Just
that people are
over the weekend. Now that's a lot of money that I would have loved to have in my pocket. I'm sure my fellow authors would have loved to have had that in their pocket as well. But we just all said, "What the hell?" and did it anyway.
We all got to stay home.
And almost 10,000 books.
The good thing is, they'll read your stuff. They'll like what you read.
That is
true.
true.
And then they'll read your future stuff.
That is true.
And they'll actually pay money for it.
We hope so. One day, we hope so. Really quick, before we start to a question, that publisher is Death's Head Press.
Death's Head Press.
If you like horror and dark fiction, and you want to check them out, go to deathsheadpress.com and get your fix there. They really seem to care though. So
what if you like horror?
There's a lot of the authors that are signed with them that write a lot of splatterpunk and extreme horror too, and there's a lot of like crazy dark bloody sexual type books in their catalog as well. So yeah, if you're into that, don't tell us about it, but feel free to
I'm glad that we have, when we publish the podcast, there's a setting that says either explicit or not explicit. And we have to check explicit just because of the subject matter, right?
Right, yeah.
We don't, other than saying like shit kickers, we don't cuss or anything like that in the podcast. But since it is checked explicit, we're allowed to.
Yeah, we can get away with anything.
So in the Q&A episode, YouTube don't give up. You know what?
Oh yeah. Oh.
But anyways, no, I just thought I'd say that because a lot of people have asked me, like, you guys hold back because they know,
right.
Sometimes I like to, throw out an F-bomb or something.
Yeah, and if they listen to my podcast, the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast, thinking it's going to be as tame as American Justice, boy, they're in for a rude awakening.
But anyways, yeah, so we can say stuff like horrors.
Right, horrors.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
One more time, horrors.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Let's get to the first question here. This first question comes from Jenny in Boca Raton, Florida.
Boca Raton.
Yeah, doesn't that translate into rat mouth in Spanish? I think from my limited knowledge of Spanish from high school many moons ago,
the rat mouth.
I want to say that's
Florida.
rat mouth. I don't know.
I wonder if it has anything to do with like the way it's shaped. Like
possibly.
The Italy boot or something.
Maybe. Okay, Boca Raton, Florida. Jenny.
Boca Raton.
Did Dennis or Norma have any kind of defensive wounds?
Well, thank you very much, Jenny, for the question. And as a matter of fact, Norma did. In fact, Dennis didn't have any because, he was shot in the mouth or in the head. So it's pretty much like accepted or theorized that he pretty much died instantly. And then Norma, seeing what just happened, just from, again, the analysis of the crime scene, she kind of freaked out and saw what was what just happened to her husband. So she started freaking out, and it seemed like there was a fight because there were some scratch marks. Oh, and there was a bullet wound in the back of her hand. So it looked like when she was, trying to shield herself,
right,
one of the bullets went through the back of the hand. And then there was also one of the big things in the case that we haven't talked about yet, but I'll give you a little sneak peek. There were some long blonde hairs in her right hand. When she died, her left hand was back behind her head, and she was kind of slouched back against Dennis. So her hand was beneath or underneath her head, and a lot of the blood and stuff had pooled there and had dried. So when they took her left hand away, a lot of her own hair came with it. But in her right hand, it was basically just kind of laying down on her stomach or on her lap. And when they lifted those up and they took pictures of them, amazingly, but there were some long blonde hairs in her right hand. And so that again would kind of indicate that she was grabbing or scratching at somebody, and those hairs came back with it. When we get to that episode, we'll talk a lot more about the hairs, because it is a very crucial point of evidence in this case. But yeah, so there were some scratches and the back, the bullet wound that went through the back of her hand and stuff like that.
Okay. Asher from Las Vegas, Nevada, Sin City.
One of my favorite cities in the whole United States of America.
Sin City that is not sinning right now as we speak.
They are
it is
shut down.
Shut down. All the casinos are shut down. Asher's question from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Las Vegas, Nevada.
Did Brandon have any wounds that would have been linked to having been in a fight, or any cuts on his hands, since the perpetrator used a knife to cut Dennis and Norma? You like how we group these questions together? We chose these questions because they both have something to do with each other.
It's kind of amazing that, you would think, okay, so the crime supposedly happened on a Sunday night, October 16th. They didn't find the bodies until the 18th, Tuesday night. So you would think that most of the time that, the perpetrator is going to be somebody that knows them, right? Most of the time it's not just a random, somebody broke in the house or somebody came in the house and killed these two people, right? I mean, it happens, of course, but most of the time, if it's the woman that dies, they always look at the husband, or if the husband dies, they always look at the wife, right? So it's usually somebody that is close to him. So you would think that everybody that was close to Dennis and Norma would have been examined, right? But that was not done. That was not, in fact, they didn't even interview Brandon or his sister until Sunday, which would have been 7 days after the murders. So, and when they interviewed them, there was none of this. You see this on like Dateline and stuff like that all the time, or 48 Hours, where they, they're taking pictures of their bodies and their hands and their arms, and there was none of that. There was no like, hey, let me see your hands, because a lot of times when somebody is stabbing somebody to kill them, their hand will slip. And they'll actually end up cutting themselves, and there'll be knife marks or wounds, lacerations on their hands, and that's one of the reasons. Oh man, I'm giving another sneak peek, but that's another reason that when we talk about the actual forensics, when we get into the trial, that's one of the things that the investigators failed to do, was to analyze the blood spatter and the drops of blood that were going from the couch to the bathroom. Because you would think you've got two dead bodies, both of them, they've been stabbed a total of, I think the total was like 14 or 15 times between them. And you would think, you've got drops of blood going all the way from the couch to the bathroom. One of those drops of blood may be the perpetrator. And there was also, and we'll get into this when we talk about the crime scene reconstructionist that we hired. There were also on there was like a cardboard box that was where a coffee table would have been. And there were what they call passive drops, and there was actually blood spatter. So, and again, we'll get into that a lot more, but if you just have something dropping from your hand and it's going to kind of hit the side, it's going to have like a different trajectory than if there was a stabbing going on, or even a shooting, and the blood is projectiled away from wherever the blood source is, and it kind of pings up against the box. It's going to have a totally different pattern. And there were those two different patterns on that box. So there was a drip and there was also blood spatter. And none of those were analyzed for DNA to see if it was possibly the perpetrator. So, but to get back to the question, no, they never examined Brandon or Charla or the aunts or Mike or anybody to see, hey, do you have any defensive wounds? Do you have any cuts or lacerations or anything on your hands or your face or whatever?
All right, Asher from Las Vegas. Thank you very much for your question.
Was that a pretty long answer to a short question?
That was a great answer to an interesting question. Actually, we're gonna try and keep this episode down to about 30 minutes this week. I know we didn't have an episode Sunday, so we're going back over the episode 2, the crime scene. So we're gonna try and keep this episode under 30 minutes this week. 3-0. So what is Sunday's episode about?
Well, Sunday's episode, we're actually getting into a little bit of the shit. What is Sunday's episode about? Because I've been editing episode 4 all day.
Let's see.
What is episode 3? Okay, the crime scene.
Tune in Sunday to find out, just like us. We'll all find out together. How's that?
Clue what it is.
We'll all find out together. How's that? It's been a long week, people. The world is on fire.
Well, plus you're on episode 8, right? You're starting episode 8.
I'm working on episode 8 right
and
now.
I've been editing episode 4 all day so I can record for next week. And then, so I forgot what, let's see, what is episode 3?
No, we just let people find out on their own. We'll find out.
We'll
find out together.
I want to tell people what it's about.
Okay, we're gonna tell you what it's about. We're looking just for you. While he's looking, let me go on my rant real quick. While he's looking, okay,
it's a good idea.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. And this is a problem that I have with this country right now. Not the fact that there is a virus going around and it's making life difficult and actually killing the elderly. That's a different problem altogether. That's a horrible problem. But like I said earlier in the episode, my very liberal wife gave me permission to purchase a handgun just to protect the family. And I think in this day and age, it's a validated request.
Especially living in South Dallas.
Very much needed, yes.
Did I say
especially living in South Dallas. Even though it's North Oak Cliff, it's still South Dallas. But a little background on me. I mean, we've talked about the military. I am previous military. I do have prior law enforcement experience. I worked for the Hunt County Sheriff's Department for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
In my life, I've had both a military and civilian top secret security clearance. Not to mention, currently, that I work for a facility that is TSA certified, Homeland Security type stuff. And I have no criminal history whatsoever. I have no mental illness red flags. But when I went to purchase my handgun today, I had to endure the waiting period. It's going to take me at least a week to be able to take this gun home.
A week?
A week.
I thought we had like a 3-day.
It is 3 working days. So,
oh, geez.
Not counting today, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, I'll be able to pick it up Wednesday.
So did you go to like a gun store?
It was a gun store.
And you went to like a specific gun store. It wasn't like Academy or something.
No. It is a store that deals only in guns.
But you don't have a license to carry, right?
I do not have an LTC.
Okay,
no,
I was gonna say because I got my I got my LTC, so I went into Academy. I said, hey, I want that gun. They put it in a box and I took it home.
That's what I need to get next. Up until now, I didn't figure I needed it. I lived in the country. I didn't need it.
I got my shotgun.
You don't necessarily need it right now because the state of Texas is under a state of emergency. And there is a law in Texas that if we're under a state of emergency, you don't need your LTC to carry.
Oh, nice.
So,
and we have open carry here, so
yes.
we can just walk down the street.
Well,
like
put it in my holster and walk down the street. Waha.
Waha.
But yeah,
where did that come from?
I find that a little disturbing, especially as a veteran and someone who's been able to obtain all those clearances over the years. I find that a little disturbing when there were people walking into this store this morning that looked like the kind, and of course this is just an observation. It looked like people that I wouldn't give a handgun to.
Probably buying them and taking them right then.
They're like, you can tell they were panic buying, and that's what I mean by that. They were panic buying. They were scared. They were buying multiple guns.
And they're like, how does this thing work?
Right. The guys at the counter were having to show them how to load them, how to work them, what the safeties were.
No.
And these people were purchasing them and walking out the damn door. America, I have a problem with this.
I wonder what it was about you that was it the bandana?
It was. I wasn't wearing the bandana at the time, but it. I want to say
There was something about you.
This is the second time this has happened to me in 4 years' time. This is the second time this has happened to me. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was cleared to do a job in the White House for Michelle Obama.
Nice.
It never happened. I was taking a piece of art to her, and I was actually going to install it on the White House wall, I believe, if I remember correctly. But something was going on, and some guy just came to the corner. I handed him the art, and he walked away. I never got to go into the White House. I was really hoping to meet Mashit.
Michelle?
Mashit. No Mashit, because there's no toilet paper. There's no Mashiting.
Please don't Mashit.
No, please don't.
Man.
I really wanted to meet Michelle Obama. I thought she was a fascinating lady, and it didn't happen. But because I had obtained that clearance to do so, it kind of red flagged me the last time that I purchased a handgun, like 4 years ago.
So you think that's maybe what it is? Like they're like, okay, well, if you're clear to go in the White House, we're going to make sure that you're not, that you haven't done anything since then.
It's because I have a file at all. The FBI wants to see why I have a file, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And none of it is for anything bad that we know of.
Hey, we have an expression. It's not illegal unless you get caught.
Damn Skippy. It's all for good things. It's all for security clearances and my history and everything. Yes, but people who have the history like I do, whether it's law enforcement or military, and I hear from cops all the time, they didn't do that to me. They didn't do that to me. Well, yeah, you're currently a cop. They're not going to do that to you.
Right.
But for military people and people with like civilian clearances and stuff, yes, they want to know. They want to check you out. You have a file. They want to check you out. So anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah, you should get your license to carry though. It's just convenient.
That's the next step.
Like for example, when I got pulled over by the state troopers one time. So when I first got my license, they had a law that you had to present your license to carry. Back then, it was called a concealed handgun license. Anytime that you were pulled over. So if you didn't present it, was actually a Class B misdemeanor. If you got pulled over, and you have a license to carry or a concealed handgun license, and you didn't present it to the officer, they could charge. I mean, most of the time they don't, but they could charge you as a Class B misdemeanor. Which a Class B misdemeanor would disqualify you from then having a concealed handgun license. They've since changed the law. In fact, I believe it went into effect either right when they changed the law to have the open carry, or maybe it was before that. But you don't have to any longer present your license to carry when you're pulled over. However, with that said, when that officer runs your license, he's going to see that you have a license to carry. It's much better for you to have it up front and to give it to them so that they, so there's no misunderstandings and they don't think that you're trying to hide anything from them.
Because they ask you, most times they ask you, when they go to walk back to their car with your driver's license or whatever, do you have any weapons in the car or anything else I need to know about? Illegal drugs, dead hookers?
Is it bad that I say other than the Uzi?
Other than the Uzi?
No, got nothing. But anyway, so this one time I got pulled over by the state trooper, and I handed him my license. I handed him the license to carry, and he just looked at it and goes, "Oh, what do you carry?" And I told him, I got a PT-92 9mm. He's like, "Oh, cool." Handed me my license and my license to carry back and said, "Be safe. Have a good day." I was just like, wow. Yeah. So I think it gives you a little more credibility with because then they know you're a law-abiding citizen. You're following the rules. You're doing,
right.
They're not going to find some, stash of handguns and machine guns and Uzis and stuff in in the trunk.
Well, just as soon as the world decides to unplug, wait for 10 seconds, and plug back in, I will do this because I think it's necessary.
Are we unplugging the world right now?
We're
Is that
going
what
to
we're
unplug
doing?
the world, wait for 10 seconds, and plug it back in. Right now, it's flashing noon on the clock.
We
it's
are-
just noon.
We're Microsoft.
Ooh.
Well, funny. I used to work for Microsoft, and that was literally our first thing that when I was in tech support. So if anybody called in with a problem, our first step was reboot the computer.
Yeah, always reboot it.
And 9 times out of 10, it fixed it.
God,
It was easy.
your tax dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen.
In fact, funny story. I just love telling funny stories. I went to work for Microsoft when they rolled out Windows 98. I was the first person, because I worked the midnight shift. So they turned on support at midnight. I was the first person to take a support call for Windows 98 in the entire country.
What?
Yep.
Really?
The whole company was there staring at. They were all walking. All the bigwigs were walking around. They were all like, okay. So who's going to get the first call? Right. We're all just kind of sitting around. All of a sudden, my phone rings, and about 30 minutes after I got off the call, guess who walked in?
Bill Gates?
Bill Gates himself. That was pretty awesome. He's a really, really, really cool guy.
That's awesome. That's a cool story. Cool story, bro.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah,
man. Thanks,
cool
bro.
story, bro.
Thanks,
All right,
bro.
guys. Thank you for tuning in to
I thought we were going to keep this under 30 minutes.
We lied. Thank you for tuning in to the Q&A for the American Justice Podcast. We apologize for not having an episode for you last Sunday. We're going to make up for it this coming Sunday.
I looked up what it was about.
What's it going to be about?
So it's about the missing gun.
The missing gun.
The gun that apparently just disappeared.
The magic missing gun. So tune in Sunday for the magic missing gun episode, and then we'll have a Q&A about that one next Friday. In the meantime, ask us a question. Ask us anything. We don't care.
When should they submit their questions?
Submit their questions before what? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Submit your questions before Tuesday to have them answered on the following or that week's Q&A episode.
So when you listen to the episode on Sunday, don't think to yourself, oh, I'll call him next week sometime. Because you only got Monday and Tuesday.
Right. Yeah.
Sunday, Monday.
Call us now.
Call us.
Not now. Not right this second.
Not right now. But after you listen to the episode.
After you listen to the episode, call.
Or email.
You can call or email. You can ask us questions on the show's Facebook page, which is facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. You can hit us up on Twitter at twitter.com/AJusticePodcast. Also, the website, you can ask questions from there, and you can see more. You can see videos of the crime scene. You can read documents. That is AmericanJusticePodcast.com. You can leave a voicemail to ask us questions, but make sure to tell us in the voicemail that we are allowed to use your voice and identity on the show. We have to have that on there. But if you want to ask us a question and hear your voice on the podcast, you can reach us at telephone number 972-942-0444. Also, the email for those questions is info@AmericanJusticePodcast.com.
And if you want to learn more about Brandon's case,
Yes.
or the documentary.
Yes, freebrandon.org is where you would do that.
Yes. And that has a lot of good information. It actually has I think a 15 or 16 minute sneak peek for the documentary, which we are now turning into a docuseries.
Yes. So. More about that coming soon. But we appreciate you guys listening and watching. Keep those questions coming. We'll try to keep it a little more consistent from here on out, considering what goes on in the world.
As long as the world is
in the
not
next
closed.
24 hours, 48 hours, week, whatever happens. Most importantly, though, stay safe, stay healthy, stay home if you can.
I thought you were going to say our tagline because you started saying stay.
We're almost ready for the tagline. What I was going to say is, this is Scott Poggensee. I'm the co-host, C. Derick Miller. You can find out more about me and listen to the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast, at cderickmiller.com. Tagline, Scott.
Stay aware, stay strong, and get involved.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
The American Justice Podcast is owned and copyrighted by Atua Productions, LLC. Your host is Scott Poggensee, and your writer is C. Derick Miller. The theme music for the American Justice Podcast has been created and composed by Josh DeRosa. Scripted and recorded episodes are published every Sunday morning, with follow-up Q&A episodes released on Fridays. Atua Productions aims for this to be an interactive podcast, where you, the audience, has a great amount of influence on the content of our shows. You can interact with us in several ways. First, and most preferred, is you can leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 972-942-0444. Be sure to leave your name and the city you're calling from, along with whether or not we can use your voice on the air. If Facebook is more your style, you can log on to our Facebook page at facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, or you can message us on Messenger if you have a more pressing question or issue. If you would like to blog about the show, then you can log on to AmericanJusticePodcast.com and tell us what you think there. You can find many of the documents discussed in this episode there as well. If you are a tweeter, you can also voice your opinion on Twitter at AJusticePodcast. If you would like to support the show, you can do so in a couple different ways. First, consider visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/AJPodcast. We have different levels of support that include t-shirts, guest call-in spots, and early access to our podcast and YouTube shows. Next, you can like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notifications of when we publish episodes. We would also very much appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review. If you have any comments about the show, or more importantly, any tips on the case we're discussing, please call 972-942-0444 and leave us a message. After all, if the subject of our podcast is innocent, that means someone out there is guilty. American Justice Army? Let's find them.